I just love the hunt. I love the process of figuring things out. When it's hard, I really like it. I love looking back, knowing that I put everything into it, and that most of the time I've learned even more about myself.
Second baseball player we've had on the pod, which is pretty cool. He's got a very unique story, and we're excited to bring it to you. He literally patented the original bat mug, which is kind of what it sounds like. Cut off the barrel of a baseball bat, hollow it out, maybe make sure that you don't get splinters, and then you can pour beer or wine or whatever else you want to put in it, probably just beer.
I was going to say wine in a baseball bat.
Maybe not wine, maybe just beer or water or whatever, and customize it to the user. So you can give it away for awesome gifts, Father's Day gifts, or just special occasions or birthdays or whatever. This is just a unique idea that typically stays in your head, but doesn't actually go on paper and then actually turn into a business. And he did it. He took his vision and made it into a commercial production, and he's grown his business for the last 4 years significantly. And it's just really cool to hear his story.
It's a story, like you said, about passion. It's a story about influencer marketing. It's a story about grit. On top of all that, it's a story of just a regular guy who heard something and applied his talents. I don't understand why I don't have this already in my house. After he was describing it, I was like, yeah, that would be cool to have. But I would never look at a baseball bat and say, saw it in half. Like, I need that.
Yeah. We haven't mentioned it, but the name of the company is Lumberlend. Lumber instead of land, lend, L-E-N-D.
There's so much you can get from this. You don't have to necessarily be the person who comes up with the idea. You have to hear the idea and execute. And that's what you and I think AJ did best. So AJ on the big W. AJ, we are pumped to have you on the Big W. We've both admired your company from afar. Matt and I have been targeted in probably every different social media platform to buy a baseball mug. So we are excited to dive a little bit into the story and about how you did what you did and how you're doing, where you're going. But awesome job. Before we even get started, turning a baseball bat into something that people give during weddings and for gifts, that's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
I got to ask, did you foresee creating a product that is given in these kind of circumstances? Or were you just so focused to the start on the actual cup mug? Talk about where this came of to shave a bat in half.
I was at Eckerd College, which is in St. Petersburg, Florida, and it just started as a conversation at dinner. Somebody had said when a bat broke that you could take this and make it into a koozie. And then someone said it'd be cool if it was a mug. And me and my original business partner just started talking about it, and he ended up staying down in Florida. This was my last semester. I ended up coming back up here working for my dad. We just kept talking about it. And then, I don't know, it was just so many times we were talking on the phone. I thought I had the resources to be able to make a prototype, made a prototype, and then kind of off and away we went.
How'd you go about making a prototype? When I think about that, I'm like, what would I do to make a prototype? I'm like, I don't have the tools. I don't have the know-how. I don't have the connections. How'd you do that?
Before you answer that question, know that even if you gave the step-by-step instructions, I couldn't even do this. So make it even dumber down than possible. I'm not handy whatsoever. So please.
Well, I didn't know what I was doing either. So I just kept it really, really basic. There's a bat company that I've used their bats when I was playing called Access Bats down Fall River, Massachusetts. So I went down there one time. They have blanks. So before they paint them and finish them and do all that type of stuff, they have just a blank wood raw bat. So I found somebody who actually made movie sets like Ghostbusters, very, very, very successful at what he's done with making movie sets. And he can build anything, has a really cool shop. And I was like, I need this to be a mug. I need this to be this deep. And he just went through his shop, made it. And that was the first prototype from an actual baseball bat. And it evolved. We did a run of 100 units, and we have a bunch of testers that we've tried over the years to get it to where it is now. But that's how it initially started.
When you think about a baseball bat, you think about, the utility of it, right? The usage of it. It gets dirty. You hit things with it. It's made out of wood.
Yep.
You wouldn't think that you'd use it to consume liquid. And so it's such a unique, creative idea. But I'm sure in the prototype phase, there was probably some concerns about we got to put stuff in it that then we consume and put in our body. How did you make sure that that was safe?
Real beginning days. I had no idea what I was doing manufacturing. No idea. So it was more like, okay, if customer got something and maybe it smelt too much, well, what could have happened? Like, what was the temperature in the room? Did I do something wrong? Like, so it was trial and error based on what we saw other companies potentially use for a finish. And then if something that happened that a customer was not good, they shouldn't have gotten a product like that, trying to think through how to make that not happen again. So
smart. Love that. That's interesting. So what you focused way more on is the vision and the idea, and you weren't overly concerned with the minutia details, because it's almost like a little bit of copying on like just kind of getting the prototype and the functionality of being able to legally drink it, stuff like that. Just kind of get it going, but more get it in the hands of the market and let them tell you it's awful, it's great, and then you tweak it.
Yep.
This market, was it like, hey, grandma, put this in, like, take a drink? Or was it like, did people actually order it? What was the test market like?
So originally it was like I just walked around at Cressy Sports. I was working out there. This was post my playing days, but I had a rapport with a bunch of the people in there. I was friendly with them. They were baseball people. Some of them were not baseball people. I just kind of went up to everybody like, what do you think of this? What's your thoughts? They gave me their 2 cents. And yeah, I would just get feedback. I had these big poster-like flip charts that I would just write down everything people would say on a nightly basis. And I would sit there and think it through and try to figure out what I thought was important, what I didn't think was important, and then just keep kind of evolving as it went.
There's thousands of people across the country who have an idea, test it out a little bit, get some feedback, talk to friends, family, get some, interesting, and never go anywhere with it, right? Never try, because they see all the ways it could fail. They see all the ways it could fail. And there are a crap ton of ways it can fail.
Yep.
Where did it change for you where you were like, I have a business, this could work because of X?
I want to say that we had originally been prototyping for maybe 15 months, gathering data, prototyping, trying to figure out a way to get it to market. So my original business partner at the time lived in Florida. So I would go down to Florida on the weekends for like a 2-month period. And then there was one time I just bought a one-way ticket and I was like, we need to get this off the ground. We need to have a website. We need to launch it. We really need to get actual customer feedback and try to make sales. Probably then, yeah, because I was there for 2 weeks and I was like, all right, I'm going to the spring training. So I then went to Arizona and saw a bunch of guys there and talked to them and tried to help build some of the momentum around the credibility of the product. So Corey Kluber, Tyler Beatty, Steve Cechek, people. I don't really know Corey that well, but I made sure I got in his hands. And I know Tyler and Steve very well. They're actually both involved in the company now. So yeah, that was probably the catalyst.
One-way ticket.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
It seems like that's been a lot of your story as we go through it. It's like when you apply yourself 100%, you've got through it. And a one-way ticket, there's nothing more 100% than a one-way ticket. I mean, that's pretty ballsy. It seems like a lot of your work ethic came from your father. It came from your upbringing. It seems to be in your brothers as well, who are, all involved in the company. Talk about your father's influence on really getting this off the ground, kind of helping you get there.
When I think of my dad, I think like the greatest memories I have is just like his overall effort that he's put into me. I was so hard-headed when I played baseball, and if there's snow on the ground, I wanted to go out and hit, and he'd be throwing me batting practice. And I don't even know if a lot of the time it would be productive, but I was like, I want to do stuff. Like I really want to be the best I can be. And he was always there to throw me BP, do all these things. And he's super busy with his own work. He has his own company, his own business, but he would always make time and try to help me. So from helping get my company off the ground, same thing, just like the effort. Whenever I needed anything, if I needed him to stain mugs, help poly mugs, help package, he took a week off of work. I think it was our first Christmas when I had no idea what I was doing. And that was like the first real traction we got, and customers were getting mad, like, where's this and where's that? And, I wasn't really sleeping, had a very interesting schedule. So just his effort that he helped with, just very supportive. And then I think he just believed in me a ton too. I think he's seen, I have the drive and the work ethic to kind of make things happen that other people might not see. And so he's just been supportive.
Every single entrepreneur, no matter what industry, what size company, whether it's a product or service, doesn't matter. It's been the constant. We've never talked to anyone that's like created something from nothing and said like, oh yeah, it was pretty easy. I just kind of like winged it for a couple of weeks and it worked out. But, early on, we were both sure that you were doing like literally everything in the business, just like Zach and I were when we started our business.
Yep.
When you got those first deals though, like those first orders that came through, I guess, where did they come from? And then like talk a little bit about what it was like to actually fulfill those orders yourself.
We were advertising on Facebook initially, and then we started advertising on Instagram as well, but mostly Facebook. Instagram, we did a lot of direct messaging to people to try to get product in people's hands. And that's how it kind of like spun off. You get into the minor league complex here, somebody sees it, maybe they're getting married, they place an order for groomsmen. That's kind of how we found out that, weddings were going to be big. We got an order for groomsmen. And we're like, wow, this is great. Like, this is definitely something that we really need to capitalize on. So I think that was kind of how the initial traction was spending money on Facebook and trying to connect and build credibility with having people post. Anytime anybody liked any of our posts that had like a check mark or had a couple thousand followers, immediately would DM, try to get them product for free and just ask them to post. And I think that's how the momentum was built. And then as far as fulfilling it, like it's just putting one foot in front of the other, I guess, is kind of a good way to describe it. We had one engraver then, now we have 15 engravers. And so we really didn't know what we were doing. We were just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, and things would come in and I would answer customer service first thing in the morning, work production, and then I would answer customer service right before I went to bed at night. If my phone rang and there was these problems that happened, I would try to address them, and it just seems like things were constantly coming at me.
You talk about customer service. It's like, so you're answering customer service because production was a problem. And then you're going back to production, working your tail off. And then you're going back to your computer and they're telling you, hey, your production was off. And so you're just constantly going back and forth.
Exactly. That was really, really hard. Production's difficult. We have a lot of custom variations, making sure we spell people's names right. I didn't really think of this a ton back then, but once things go wrong, you're like, okay, well, how can I think about this completely through to make sure this doesn't happen again? What can we put in place? What can we do? What did I do?
The customer's always right is tossed around in every single service industry. Mm-hmm. But in a production standpoint, it's like, how do you make somebody happy when like you spell their name wrong? I mean, your last name's hard. You understand. I mean, people
Yeah.
have misspelled your last name probably all the time.
Yeah.
What's a good example of when you've made it right?
If we do something wrong on our end, obviously we have to fix it. If somebody's not happy, typically, we just kind of talk through what's going on. Back in the days when I would be on the phone talking to customer service directly, it was an interesting experience for me because I'd never like been face to face with a customer and somebody was heated. I would walk through the kitchen and I'd hear like my mom or, calling up customer service and not being happy. And I don't think I would think too much of like, well, what if that was me? How would I handle that? And, it was interesting. When I had my phone number on the website, West Coast would call at like 10 p.m. And like, I'm like, what do you do? Like, okay. So I'd answer the phone and somebody'd be super upset about the spelling and just try to make it right and keep it going and roll with the punches, try to be understanding of where they're coming from. Yeah. They paid for something, I want to get them something and make them happy. Just keep trying over and over.
You clearly understand the impact, the power of influencers and kind of going B2B in essence. Zach and I, our business was built through referrals. And so we had to go create relationships with centers of influence that could refer. And you've kind of done the same thing in a different digital space. Can you talk to like that day when you got really excited because someone of significant credibility said, yeah, I'm going to support you in some capacity? I noticed like Topps, Major League.
Topps, really cool one. We got the deal with the Players Association, and that was really cool. So that's a license that we have.
What year was that, and what did it take to get that?
2017.
So early. Wow.
Yeah. We went through our first Christmas. Tyler came back. We started talking. He wanted to get involved. Tyler was just really a friend. I met him at Crazy Sports Performance. He pitches for the Giants, 2-time first-round pick. Maybe like 3 months later, I went down and spoke to him, and he was interested in helping. And I was like, well, this would be huge if you could help connect us to the Players Association. And so I ended up giving a little bit of equity, and he helped connect those two, and we got that deal.
Wow. How has that deal impacted the business?
Pretty substantially. I mean, I think, overall, it definitely propelled us a lot. Probably say it helped double our business the next year, which is pretty important. We got another really good jolt, figured out, certain things that we could do around Father's Day, which is just a massive time for us. It's the biggest time of the year for us, period, even bigger than Christmas. It helped overall. It allowed us to put players' names on there. Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge, allowed us to do team roster type stuff, team signature type stuff. So now we kind of could get into the memorabilia standpoint. So it definitely helped.
That's huge. So I have to say, your biggest time of the year is Father's Day, which we both understand. If you're a dad and you like baseball, which is like 2 out of every 3, that would be an awesome gift to give. in the middle of a pandemic, though, with reduced staff, as we'd expect. How did you guys handle that?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. I think we built on momentum for prior years. So we saw so much growth from Father's Day to Father's Day to Father's Day that I think it really taught us a lot about how to be ahead of inventory, not this past Father's Day, but the Father's Day before. We were running out of inventory. We had an email trying to, get on, I think it was the Today Show, and we had to say no because they needed us to give them a commitment that if they aired on this day, that we could fulfill product and would be in their house by this day. It really took off 2 Father's Days ago. I think we just built on everything that I've kind of seen happen. We have so many engravers now. How do we do things in bulk? I found somebody who came in and did an amazing job, Dakota, who pitches at Quinnipiac, was looking for work. I was like, I might be able to give you 15 or 20 hours. And he ended up working 60, 80. And I think that last week he worked like 93. He was, almost here as much as me. Yeah. And, everybody put in just a lot of work. Will's been with the company, who also owns equity. He's the CMO. He knows production well. He went down there. It's kind of all hands on deck helping out.
So this is very clearly a gift product. What's the coolest gift you've received?
I think recently the coolest gift I received was for my birthday. My dad gave me a $1 bill. Didn't even say anything. He didn't tell me what it was for. I think he allowed me to kind of think through why he did that. And for me, it was just such a perfect gift because it's interesting when people start talking more about how important money is in the happiness of their life. And I've just had so much happiness with earning, putting in work, doing things that just generally make me happy. And I'm aware that, now I'm engaged. When we have a family and kids, I realize that I probably will be dialed back to a certain degree to make time for them even more. But I just love the hunt. I love the process of figuring things out when it's hard. I really like it. It's tough, but it's so ingrained inside of me, and it makes me so happy. Because I love looking back, knowing that I put everything into it, and that most of the time, I've learned even more about myself. There's just so much growth and experience with kind of the chase and the pursuit and the hunt. And I think the $1 bill was just kind of happiness in a nutshell.
Great answer. Shifting up a little bit, you've mentioned 3 or 4 times that there's specific people who either earned the opportunity to get equity or you felt that was just the right thing to do. How did you decide how to divvy that up, how much to keep? Just like production, kind of learned as you go and one step in front of the other? Or?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that I just learned as I went. Equity, anything else, with it being kind of my baby, I have to be cool with the decisions that I make. It's living and dying on my own sword. Totally respect anybody else that's run their own business, but it needs to make sense to me in order to make something like that happen. And with regards to equity, just trying to be a good person. I don't need to hold on to every single penny and stuff. If somebody's earned it, I have one-on-ones with people in the company every single week. If it's something that they're ambitious for and, it makes sense to me, then I do it. But it's something that really had to be earned. I don't just look to kind of give, right away. I think 2 people, Tyler and Steve got theirs right up front, which is kind of just being helpful and thankful of their time. Not a lot of equity, but, some equity is kind of just a token of, thanks for the help here and there and connecting the dots. And then as far as Will goes, Will's just put a lot of work in, grown a lot, been with me since I brought the company back up here. And so it made sense.
You just said that every single week you have one-on-ones with your employees. Is this a structured meeting that you follow a specific process, or is it just time to engage, connect, for them to share? Well, how do you handle those one-on-ones?
So I got the one-on-ones idea from Gary Vee. When I was in the garage, I listened to his daily V almost every single day. I'd put it on YouTube. This is before he had the whole podcast audio and had everything, stripped. And when I was by myself, I would just listen, whatever he was up to, what he was doing. It kind of gave me company, 11 at night, 2 in the morning, there's nothing going on. It's very quiet, and you can hear your own thoughts, but it's also helpful when no one else is there to kind of have a voice or something else that's playing to kind of help provide a little bit more of a jolt. And I heard him say one time about one-on-ones and talk about how important it was to try to connect with people. And, I don't have a massive company, so it seems very scalable. And if I'm going to have people here, why not actually care about them? So why not talk to them, give them the time to chat about whatever they want to? And for me to be honest too, which is a super hard thing, at least I have learned kind of, is being authentic, most of the people that have come into Lumberlend, I was like friends with at Eckerd. So like these are like friends and family, and you have to be like, okay, just so you know, like this is what I'm thinking for here. And you have to have those kind of conversations. So I just think trying to be as authentic and understanding, and, you know, if this isn't the right place for them, I'd love to figure that out too. And like, how can I help? What's next?
Well said. Gary's a huge influence on us too. We loved listening to him like 2015, 2016, 2017. It's been instrumental. I think one of the things that Gary talked about a lot in his one-to-ones, to Matt's question, was the key about a one-to-one is what you listen to, not what you say, from your perspective, you know, because I think what we know about you and what you're talking about, I mean, your work ethic is on the brink of intimidating. I mean, how much you work and how many hours you've been in, as a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Yep. You know, and I'm not saying you are the same as it, but a lot of entrepreneurs put in a lot of hours.
Definitely.
So working with you to get the time just to maybe talk about how you had a great piece of lasagna last night is probably important to a lot of people to understand that, like, when you just hang out with AJ, like, he actually still likes lasagna. He's not just going to talk about production issues. And I imagine that's really comforting.
I'd say, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there. I think it was kind of interesting too, is when COVID hit, you know, we saw sales completely fall off. So I furloughed everybody, you know, down to my brothers. All those conversations were really interesting because, you know, everybody like understood what was happening, and you could kind of see like the rapport that was built from those conversations. It wasn't spite. Obviously, people have lives and bills and things to pay, but it was like people understood. I was helpful reaching back out after people were furloughed with what can I do? How can I help? Still trying to like do whatever I can to help them out. So I think it definitely helped overall, even when shit hit the fan.
That's what's impressive to Matt and I, but speaking for us about your journey, is a lot of people who took the path you took, which is incredible amount of hours, pushing it through, putting a ton of weight on your shoulders. They don't respect their team as much because of how much they did to get them there. And I think what you've done by listening to Gary and other people is like, when you've had a team, you're like, oh my God, I'm just so grateful you're here, because where it was is unsustainable. It's like absolutely unsustainable. You can't have the kids that you want to have, the wife that you want to have, et cetera. It's not possible.
100%.
It's not possible. So good for you. Great transition.
Thank you.
To move from where you are now to where you want to be in a year or 2 years, will it be another major relationship secured, or do you think it's more just the compound effect of the consistent quality that you guys are delivering? Or do you think you'll need that extra big deal, that big relationship?
It's tough to say, because I think that next big deal would be MLB, and MLB is just so expensive overall. And so I don't even know if some of those types of numbers actually make sense. I think it has to do with more what's going to be created to be valuable to who our customer is. And so I don't have my finger on it yet, but I'm thinking about it. It's on my radar, and it definitely will be tackled. You know, I think trying to make better relationships and listening to the customers we currently have is super important for sure. The wedding orders are massive for us. That's something that we might try to double down on even more, obviously, because those average order sizes are 10x almost what a regular one-off order is.
So you had 10 people in the party, everyone gets a custom gift opposed to one-off orders. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And it's super memorable. It's custom.
Definitely. People love the ability to put the date on there, the custom design, the name, the title. The stains are big sellers. People love the way that looks at like a setup of a wedding.
Have you tried partnering with like bars near ballparks in places like that?
There's actually what's called a mug club in Milwaukee, Broken Bat Brewery. So we do a lot of mugs there. And we have tried to replicate that overall. So they have mugs numbered 1 to 300. And if you bought mug number 1, then they give you a discount off of drinks. You buy the mug, but then you get a discount off drinks, etc. So they do that. We are trying to replicate that for sure. We started to do beer reviews, which is something we recently just launched. I think there's 2 that are out there. I think there's 4 that's already been filmed. We're going to do that twice a week. So we have all these craft beers coming in from these baseball cities. Yeah. So we'll review them and whatnot. I have other thoughts too about potentially creating our own beer or our own beverage or our own coffee. I haven't really wrapped my head around what that would look like, but I am interested in continuing to innovate and what makes sense for the brand.